Stop hopping on your sales calls unprepared. If you don't have a dialed in pitch, you're losing sales big time. A well-designed process to pitch clients will not only greatly increase your conversion rate on the calls, but more importantly, it will give you numbers that you can rely on to make business decisions. Today, you'll learn my exact pitching process that I teach my clients to reel in high-ticket sales every day. These are the same tactics that I developed after nearly 10 years of high-ticket sales and millions of dollars of generated revenue. That sounds fun? Let's get into it. This one's going to be a bit of a doozy here, but absolute fire, I can assure you. All right, so let's just first talk about this, right? So when we're talking about structuring a pitch for a client. In the words of Alex Hormozi, make them feel stupid to say no. That's what we're talking about right here. Let's first talk before we start writing the pitch, some things you actually got to start asking yourself. So, what are some of the dream outcomes of your client avatar? Right? Your perfect client, your avatar client, which you should already have at this point. You should know exactly who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, how your product helps them. What are they trying to achieve? We'll take the example if you're doing marketing SEO. What are they trying to achieve? Well, they're trying to grow their business. They're trying to get more clients. They're trying to get more calls, typically, or just get more orders, grow the revenue. All right. What are some problems that your customers tend to have with your product before they sign up? Essentially, what are some common objections that your clients tend to have? Really important to think these things out. So you can actually you can either solve them in the pitch, or at least you have a really dialed in response when these things do come up. But it's better to just the really common ones, you want to actually put them in the pitch, because they don't always say what is holding them back. But if you know from experience what tends to hold them back, you can address that in the call and remove a huge amount of doubts, and you'll get to the end of the call and you'll find that a lot less people need to think about it because you've solved all their issues. So if you're doing SEO services, biggest potential problems are it's expensive. It takes too long to see results. SEO takes 3 to 6 months minimum to start getting some real results. You have to fork out cash every month until that happens. So it's a cash flow issue. For just about any industry, it's how can you prove that your product's going to work? How can you say you can do what you say you're doing? And no matter who you're selling to, no matter what you're selling, that's always a concern. You have to be able to prove with a reasonable doubt that you're their guy or gal. And then when you know that, let's say you have your top 5 to 10 common objections that your clients have, what are some potential solutions that you can offer to these problems? Or what are some things you can say to combat them? Or just in general, how can you solve that problem even better? Like in SEO, I wish there was a way to make things appear on Google, in a week. That's just not possible. Maybe you could, if they really need clients right away, maybe you could introduce a package to run some Google ads to get clicks immediately, because Google ads turn on the second you start paying for the ad bids, right? That's a potential option. That goes actually back into changing your offer. But we're talking about the pitch here. So what I'd be saying on the pitch is what you're really going to want to be doing is being able to explain without a reasonable doubt why going with SEO, going with search engine optimization is the lowest risk, best choice option. Essentially why they should be using SEO compared to social media, pay-per-click ads, billboards, by all these different types of marketing, which could get you calls. You need to be able to explain very, very well and very succinctly why it's in their best interest to move forward with SEO. Okay, get the dream outcome ready, get the questions, get the common objections planned out, and your solutions to those problems, get those all written out, and then let's move on to actually structuring the pitch. All right, so you get on the call, you get on the Zoom call. Let's get into it. Now, obviously, you typically start with intro small talk. No need to script that out, guys. You're all smart individuals. Make a friend, right? Say a nice thing. If they have a nice picture in the back, mention that. If they're from Cincinnati, your brother's from Cincinnati, mention that. If they have a sports team you like, mention that. If they have a sports team you don't like, make a joke, mention that, right? Make a friend, and say it with a smile. No real amount of time to spend on this, but feel free to spend a couple minutes. But obviously, you don't want to spend too much because someone who's busy, a businessman with things to do, does not spend too much time small chatting. Let's get into the real meat here. Qualifying questions, the art of qualifying questions, and why is this so important, and why do all salespeople in the world talk about qualifying questions? Well, essentially it's just because you need to get to know them. you need to get to know who they are, what their world is, what prompted them to get on the call, what their goals are, all these types of things. And the way to uncover that is with well-designed, crafted questions, typically when they're open-ended. The purpose is to listen and ask questions and try to deeply understand their problem, why they're on the call, what their pain points are, and you ask specific questions that are going to qualify or disqualify them as clients. Now, qualifying would be it's a fit for your product, as in your product can help them achieve their desired goal or remove their pain points. And disqualifying is of course the opposite. Disqualifying tends to be I can't work with someone who doesn't have this or isn't that. Someone that isn't a doctor. I only work with doctors. If they're not a doctor, disqualified, boom, I can't continue. There's no point in continuing. I only sell to doctors, things like this. And really important too, and this does tend to get missed, and this is also why I was asking questions higher up above about this, you need to be sure that you know what the client's ideal outcome is, what their goals are, what is success to them, all these types of things. If you don't know what it is, how can you be sure that it's a good fit mutually to work together? These are the things you want to be thinking about. Okay, great. I hope that makes sense. So how do we do that? How do we actually get this information? So the way that we do this is well-designed questions that are meant to open the client up, get the information that we need mutually to make a decision. So let's get into exactly how do we do that right now. All right, so first, typically what you want to do is you start with broad strokes question where they're currently at, their current situation, and then you focus into their vision, where they want to go, more specific questions, and then what's stopping them from getting there. So let's start with current situation. Here are some suggested questions that are a good place to start. Obviously, edit these for your own industry, your own situation. But just in general, I like to start with, just please take me through your story in a few minutes. Where did you get where you are today? We'll let them talk, open-ended. How big's your team? Do you have any partners or anyone you need to run this by? Now, that's a double question now. How big's your team? That's going to give you really good ideas of their revenue, their budget, all this type of stuff, right? If someone's a one-man shop, their budget's going to be a lot tighter than if there's 50 people. And then you ask about partners because, as you might imagine, you want to make sure that you're talking to a decision maker, or if you are talking to a decision maker, you want to know if there's various decision makers, and you also know it's going to be probably a multiple call close. What's your current monthly, yearly revenue? I just ask it, but I understand that's a tough question to ask. Most business owners I find, at least in the US, they will be willing to say it. However, that's up to you, and that's if you really need to know these numbers to hone in. Where your client's located, that's pretty good. Can you take on more clients? Do you want to expand? Is it a goal of theirs to take on more clients? And not everyone wants that. Okay, some people are just fine where they're at, and that's fine. But if you're selling marketing services, it's probably not a good fit. So where do you get your leads? Now, this is written for someone who's selling marketing, but basically it's asking, are you using a current solution right now, and how's it going for you? Is the idea. So where do you get your leads? Another way of saying, what are you doing for your marketing right now? And if you're selling SEO, it's pretty good to know someone is already doing SEO. They failed at it. The other agency failed. If they're doing this, they're doing that. It's really good information to make a decision. Okay, vision. Now, why do we get into this? Vision is where do they want to get to? Start to paint it in their brain together. Work with it together to where they want to get to, what the disconnect is. All right, so where do you want to get to the next 12 months? Just ask them. What do you want to get into? Revenue, clients, team members, whatever works for you. Do you want to retire in 12 months? That's great. It's probably good to know at this point of the call. Why is this important to you? That's a great question, because guess what? It's not about money, almost always. Why is this important to you to double your revenue? Is it about money? Is it just stacking their Scrooge stacks in the bank account? No, it's about the stability for them and their family, so that they can retire. It's so that they can prove their dad wrong. I'm probably not going to say that, but it's usually about things that are completely unrelated. So getting them to be like, look, I actually want this money so I can spend more time with my baby girl. Okay, that's a little more powerful than, yeah, I just want to double. Right. Really important too. What needs to happen with the business in the next 12 months for you to be happy? It's another way of asking the same thing, but sometimes they're not just going to give you the information right away, so you got to prod a little bit. So this is just a different way of basically asking the same thing. What needs to happen, right? And it's more generic too. Okay, issues. Now this is great. Now you got to poke the bear a little bit. Well, what's stopping you from getting to that vision? Oh, you're going to get some good stuff when you ask that question. Hopefully they'll just say, yeah, it's because I don't have X, and X is a product that you're selling. That's pretty good because they just said out loud that they need your product. That's good. You're in business. They're not always going to say that, but this is one of those questions where you can get a lot of good information pretty quickly. And a general, generic question, what else should I understand in terms of issues that you're currently facing? That's just another way to say, just open it up. Just what else should I need to know? Well, I'm getting sued. Oh, okay, that's good to know. All right. Last bit here on the questions and qualifiers. Now we've got broad strokes. We've narrowed it down to their vision. We've narrowed it down to the issues. Now let's get to some specific industry questions that are really relevant to you. So I might ask things like, okay, so what are you doing for SEO right now? If you're selling SEO, what's your current sales process? I coach people on how to implement their sales process. So I might ask, okay, what are you doing right now? What's your sales process? I might ask, I ask that every time. Because I want to know if they put some time and energy or hired a trainer or if they're reading books. I want to know that before we get rolling. This is another example too. How do you produce your current podcast? For instance, if you have a podcast production company, what kind of support are you after? That's a great question too, particularly relevant for certain industries. Do you want it done for you, done with you? You're not sure. It's basically how hands-on does a client want to be? Is it a bigger client with more budget? Yeah, just plop the money down, just take care of it. That's great. It's good to know. Or is it like, hey, look, I'm kind of on a budget. I just need to start with like an audit and I'm going to do it myself. That's good to know too at this point. What caused you to look for someone to help you with this now? So basically that's a way to ask, like, if I'm selling SEO services and you're on a call with an SEO person and you've done SEO before, it's like, okay, what are you doing for SEO right now? Well, yeah, we hired a guy. Okay, yeah. So if you're doing SEO, why are we on this call? Further digging, get into the goods. We want to unearth these things at the beginning. It's a tendency to shy away from these things. Be like, okay, well, if they had a bad SEO experience, I shouldn't talk about that, even though I'm selling SEO. So they're, of course, relating their bad experience to you. So it's just like, look, it's just better to hit that one head on and kind of start to figure out what is going on, why it wasn't successful. And then you can explain why maybe if had they worked with you, or maybe you can do it differently, right? Okay, so now we have covered the qualifying questions. And this is actually the most important part of a pitch. If I was to break down a pitch, any pitch, into like a pie graph and give it weight in terms of importance, I would give like 60, maybe 70% of the overall value of a pitch to the initial qualifying questions, the start. That's the majority of the heavy lifting. And guess what? You're not even talking. You're just asking good questions and zipping the lip and listening. Super powerful stuff. Be willing to take as long as it needs on these initial questions to getting to know the client, okay? And you'll just find the rest just flows like butter when you do this correctly. Now we're actually going to start to explain what you can do and your offer. If I was to give this a weight in terms of the pie graph, I'd probably give it like 20-30%. Still important, still can't be missed, but way less important than the initial part. So good thing you guys are already, if you're following along, you guys are already on your way. So let's get into it right now. So now you're 20-30 minutes into the call, maybe sometimes more, sometimes less, but you're well into the call. And if you've done this correctly, you have hardly talked at all, which is actually what you want. You don't want to talk. You want them to be talking. You want them to feel listened to, which is actually pretty amazing how little you have to talk to have a conversation with someone, because so few people are actually listening. People typically are just waiting for the next chance to speak. So if you're actually listening, actively listening, you'll be amazed at how far you've gone. Okay, but enough on that. I've already stressed that before. So let's get into now, what do you do when you need to start talking? Well, typically I just launch right into it. Say, okay, look, hey, I'm Jacob Bushmaker. I've been doing online sales for over 10 years, doing high ticket sales. I've made over 100,000 cold calls before I stopped counting, booked about 3,000 sales presentations, brought in hundreds of clients, and roughly between 15 to 20 millions of dollars of revenue, right, in that time. I then typically give my mission, what my company does, which for me I help online business owners optimize their sales process for quick and long-term wins. My goal is basically to help you serve more clients and gain your financial freedom. Basically, which is what I found is that most entrepreneurs, when they start, they don't really want to do the sales. They kind of just fall into it and they end up just doing the sales, but they haven't really put too much thought into actually how to do it, which ends up costing them big. And the fact of the matter is, with a honed-in sales system, you end up making a lot more money. You get a higher validation on your business, which allows you to hire A players, take a step back, and enjoy more of a life-work balance if that's your goal, or just get a higher validation than sell the company. It basically all comes down to a honed-in sales process, and that's where I come in. So what did I do there? Okay, I basically spoke directly to my ideal avatar client. My ideal avatar is online business owners, particularly agency owners, people who do SEO, who are doing the sales thing, but they don't really want to or don't really know how, but they just want to grow their business and make more money. That's very, very common in my industry, and I know that just from working in the industry and talking to my clients over the years. But your clients are going to have some pain point as well, and this is a good point to kind of hit it. And you want them to be like, oh yeah, this is my guy. That's what I need. If you get them to think that, you've nailed it. Okay, so now you've nailed that. Now let's get into the offer. Guess what? We're 40 minutes into the call and you haven't even explained what you did yet. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That is where you want to be. Now it's time to explain what you do and explain exactly how your business can help them get to their ideal outcome. All right. Now, when you're doing the offer, when you're scripting it out or you're mapping it out, this is when you want to start to really try and hit all those common objections that we talked about at the very beginning of this video. Address the main reasons why a client wouldn't want to work with you and offer solutions to these problems as much as you can. Usually you can't hit them all perfectly, but in a perfect world you would be able to do the best you can. Typically you do a transition. That's pretty easy. You transition between what you're just saying, give them a few nuggets of value. I'll explain that in a second, but basically give them a bit of value just to kind of show you know what you're talking about. Explain how your service works, pretty clear. Just explain what the heck it is you do, how it works, give them the price, give them the deliverables. Deliverables is essentially what they get with that price. Give them a guarantee. Guarantee is whatever you can guarantee the desired outcome. You want to hit them with that right after you give the price and deliverables. Add a little bit of scarcity, urgency. Essentially, you'll let them know, like for instance, I only take on clients on a limited basis. I'm almost at capacity. I only have room for one more client right now. I'm willing to offer it to you. I'll get into that a bit later. And then, as I said before, give them as many solutions to the common problems as you have. Essentially, you want to work these in as you're going. Okay, so how does this sound if let's say I'm selling SEO services? I might be like, okay, great, man. Well, hey, look, I got some good news and some bad news. Like the bad news is you got a lot of areas to improve, but the good news is that I can help you. I've seen a couple things that are super easy to implement that should get really quick results with pretty minimal effort and time. Such as I saw that your backlink profile is really weak. We need to get you some foundational backlinks. Also notice as well your page speed is really slow, right? These are things that Google has mentioned is a ranking factor, a massive ranking factor. We want things to be loading really fast. So just that alone should get you a quick initial bump. And just typically in general what I do is I'm going to be working with the easiest types of things that get the highest result and then working backwards. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be starting with auditing your whole software, your whole website, looking for these easy wins, middle win, long-term wins, and then I'm going to give you a plan. We're going to go through a link plan, a link audit, a link detox. We're going to do keyword research, and then we're going to find also the content gaps that your competitors have as well, things that they have that are ranking, and that with you and your domain authority, you should be able to rank as well very easily. But long story short, we're going to get you some traffic very quickly. Okay. For this, I charge $10,000 a month. What you get with that is you get the audit, you get a concierge service, you get a dedicated link builder, you get to this, you get to that, right? I guarantee that you're going to be able to get at least a 40% increase in clicks in the next 3 months, or I keep working with you for free. We are a small agency. We're a boutique agency. What that means is we're actually really picky on who we bring in, and we're almost at capacity right now. We actually have room for one more client. I'm willing to offer it to you right now, and so if you did want to give it a shot, this is what we do. Something like that. I just made that up on the fly, but that might be how it would flow if you were actually pitching SEO services. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Now we've gotten to the qualifying questions, the intro. Now we've gotten through the pitch, the offer. Now we're moving to the last step, the closing. If I was to give a percentage of the pie, as I explained before, a percentage of the importance of closing to everything else, it by far gets the lowest, probably 10% at most. That doesn't mean you want to neglect it. 10% is still 10%, right? But the days of wrangling them in to get them to yield and using these word gymnastics, these gymnastic materials to wrestle them in, those days are long gone. So if you're handling the beginning part of the call, the closing should be easy as can be. Let's just talk a little bit how I might handle the closing. So typical closing, it's easy peasy. I don't do any intense closing tactics. Basically, the closing process is just explain what happens next. That's really it. I don't teach these kind of tricky sales tactics of manipulating them and getting them mental gymnastics to get them to sign up. No, just tell them what happens next. If they want to sign up, if they don't, that's fine too. Right, I'm going to sign up the next guy. Don't even worry about it. Right, that's more the vibe you want to go for. So when you're closing, you typically just ask for the order. You're going to explain what they need to do to move forward, explain what they need to do next, take a deposit, what have you, just whatever that is, if it's appropriate for your industry. Book a follow-up call if necessary. If they're not ready to go, that's fine, and then that's pretty much it. Right? No magic to it. If they're right on the line, the only kind of, I guess, tactic you could say that I sometimes will do is this is when you might want to throw in a bonus. Okay, so a bonus would be okay. Look, like if you did want to get started today, I'd be able to throw in some local link citations. Usually charge about $200 for that. That's kind of like the Hail Mary. Like they're right on the line, kind of teetering. Hey, look, if you're willing to do it today, I can drop 10% off. But that's like the last thing. That's just push them over the edge. They're teetering on the edge, and then you just push them. They probably would have done it without it, but then you give them that, and then they just they go for it. This is also pretty good if you have physical products as well. Yeah, just so you know, if you're to do that today, I can throw in an extra bottle. I can throw in this. I can throw in a supplementary item. I don't have a good example. I'll give you a hammer if you're a tool guy. Yeah. Anyways, but it's something like that might be how I do it right then. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. If you have any questions, that was a doozy of a video. So if you have any questions, please drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Thank you.